On this episode of the podcast, we're going to get all Yogi Berra up in here and talk about some classic Yogi-isms and let John break those down. Hey, coach for a coach conversation this week on Red Zone Retirement Program.
In football, the red zone is where a team has to make small adjustments to ensure victory. As you approach retirement, you also need to make small adjustments to ensure success. This is the Red Zone Retirement Program with registered investment advisor and enrolled agent John Mears of Mears Money Management.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. John and I here to talk about investing, finance, retirement, and Yogi Berra. We're going to have a little fun with Yogi Berra this week. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing fantastic. As we're recording this, getting started with the summer football and the heat and trying to deal with 14 and 15-year-old kids along with my clients who are not 14 and 15-year-olds. Yeah.
Well, you know, I figured you would enjoy this conversation. I mean, Yogi had some great stuff, right? I mean, he had some killer lines, and it's really like spot on, like folksy wisdom, I suppose, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like pretty accurate, and it's just hilarious, some of this stuff, and it's been around for a long time.
It is. Some of his lines, one of my favorite from him that he said back in the day was, nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. Stuff like that.
Right. The game is half mental or something like that.
Yeah, 90% of this game is half mental.
There you go.
He was a heck of a baseball player too. We kind of forget with all his sayings that he was actually
and he coached too, didn't he?
He did. He managed the Mets, managed the Yankees. Yeah, he actually had quite a career. There was a Netflix special about him that I watched, which was really well done. But we love his sayings though, and the sayings that he has do tie in. They really do to the financial.
They really do. Yeah.
Yes.
And I never did look this up. Maybe you know off the top of your head, and if not, if one of our listeners or viewers are watching, let us know in the comments down below. Did they name Yogi Berra after him? They had to have. They had to.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yep.
You know,
Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, Hanna-Barbera, Yogi and Boo Boo. I don't know who the Boo Boo equivalent. I mean, I know that part of that was the Honeymooners too, which was also the Flintstones, right? The Flintstones were.
They kind of put all that together. You're exactly right. I remember reading that many years ago about all how they put all that together.
But the name's too close, right? Yogi Berra, Yogi Berra, just had to be the case. So, all right, well, let's get into some Yogi-isms here. Let's have some fun with this. I got to start with one of my favorites, which is a nickel ain't worth a dime anymore. And boy, that's apropos. You know, in today's world, if Yogi was still around, he'd be like, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, inflation's a real thing, and that is really what he was kind of saying is that what we have now isn't really worth what it used to be. And I think again his way of saying it, when he says it this way, I think we all agree that is really true.
Yeah,
that
it makes you laugh, right? But it also makes you go, yeah, nickel ain't worth a dime.
Yes, it isn't. We know that, you know, we go places and we can't spend the money that we used to. And you know, we've all seen the memes here with the grocery cart 5 years ago where it's full and grocery cart now where it's half full or whatever. Of course it's exaggerated, but
it might not be though, Coach. It might not be. Maybe Yogi would have to update this to a nickel ain't worth a buck anymore. I don't know.
Correct. You know? Yeah. If inflation has gone down a little bit over the last year or so, but we always point out, we're using the rule of 72, which I always like to use. If inflation's at 4%, that means prices will, do you take 72 divided by 4, which is 18? That means prices should double in 18 years. Well, we're going to be in retirement, hopefully, longer than 18 years. So that means your basket of groceries is going to double in price in the next 18 to 20 years. That's just the way the numbers work.
That's with that number, right? But if it was higher inflation, which we've saw the last couple of years, well, then that could expand that a little bit, or you know,
that's why we have to include the inflation calculation when we're doing our planning.
So, is your advisor including inflation for you? If not, give John a call. There's my PSA for this episode. All right, let's go into the next one here, Coach. If you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. I mean, again, it's like folksy as all get out, but it's true. If you don't know where you're going, you might just end up where you didn't intend to.
I see this so often where people make a plan. Well, they don't make a plan. They just make a decision, and they decide to go ahead and do this thing. And when we sit down, I'm like, well, why did you do this? Or what was your strategy behind this? Or conversely, if this doesn't work out and things happen this way, what is your strategy to deal with that? And people don't really know. And that is something that I am a big planning guy in my life, in my business, in football. I try and plan as much as I can out, knowing that we're going to have to adapt anyway, no matter what your plan is. But yeah, if you don't know where you're going though, if you can't decide what your goal is, and the goal doesn't have to be some extravagant goal. It can be simply, hey, I want to live off of X number of dollars a month. That could be your goal. That could be it. If your goal is to live off of something a month, let's just run with that. But sometimes people don't even know how to come up with that number or where to get to.
Yeah, true.
So,
true.
Yeah.
I was thinking about you talking about, I'm a big planning guy, obviously, and what you do for a living and the coaching. And I thought, you should just try it. Go out there on the field with the boys and coach, what's the just do what you want. Run around.
And, hey, guys, what do you guys want to do today?
Just run. I don't care. See that guy over there? Run over there and say hi to him. You don't tackle him. Just go over and talk to him.
I have seen that. I had a couple players last year because last year was my first year at this new school, and kids had said that the year before I had arrived.
No.
They go, "What did you guys do in practice?" Nothing.
What
do you mean you didn't do anything? Well, that's why they probably only that is why they only won one game that year. But it was just it was just really a comical interaction I had with these kids.
So you're saying that practice actually helps? No.
If we didn't need to do it, we wouldn't do it.
That's right. So. Practice makes perfect. All right. When you come to a fork in the road, coach, take it.
Mm-hmm.
I love this one because we raised our daughter, coach, saying, look, life is full of decisions. Make one, right? And the tagline every time to her when she was kind of find herself in like a pickle about what, something during life, school, whatever the case was, honey, life's about choices. Make one, right? You have to make, good or bad, you have to make a choice. Doing nothing tends to never work out.
Correct. The classic choice we have to make in retirement planning is with Social Security. We know that. What age to choose to use Social Security? We have to figure out what order we're going to do our distributions. Are we going to go from the taxable account? We're going to go to the IRA, whatever. Those are decisions we have to make. And so, you get to this, and the fork in the road really is at retirement. There are further forks in the road, though, once you get into retirement and further down. And I understand that's why retirement can be scary because you are now, if you're a person who has not been a quote unquote decision maker in your life, it's kind of thrust upon you. You don't really have a choice. So when you come to that fork in the road, you're going to have to take it. You're going to have to make a decision. You will have to, at some point, decide what age you're going to take Social Security. 62, 65, 67, 70. You're going to have to make a decision.
Right.
With a very little way to get out of this. There's some way we can change our Social Security decision, but it's only limited within 6 months, and there's all these other rules that go with it. Basically, once you choose your Social Security, you're committed to it, and that's it. It's etched in stone.
Yeah, you want to get it right the first time. Yeah, you want to get it right the first time. There is that little mulligan. There's that little caveat where you could, make a quick change to it or whatever, but you got to pay the money back.
And then yes. So the basically, once you make a decision on that, the same thing with any kind of an annuity or your retirement. If you have a pension, when you make that commitment, by the way, I want 100%. I want 75% with my spouse getting a certain percentage. All that. Those are things as well that once you make that decision, it is very difficult. It's almost impossible to change it. It's etched in stone. So these are important decisions. If you're not a decision maker, you come to an advisor like us. We can help you make those decisions. Those are things we won't ever really make the decision for you, but we'll guide you down the path where you believe you're making the decision that is in your best interest.
Well, here's the math,
you're most comfortable with.
Here's the math. Here's the stress testing. We're running your portfolio. We're stress testing this out. If you do option A, you might have this happening. If you do option B, right, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And then it's easier to take the fork, whatever fork that is, right?
Once people are pretty intelligent. I mean,
sure.
They are. Once you give them information, I'm working with a guy right now who's trying to do a tax deferred exchange. And he's having difficulties with it, which is rare, but it does happen. And so he's just finding out, okay, what happens if I have to take the tax hit? Now the tax hit's here in California. Yeah. It might be big, but at least he can make a decision. Yeah. Do I pay Gavin a certain amount of money or not? Is that worth not doing this? So those are decisions he has to make.
Damn thing, right? But
so that's really where he'll be at. But my job is to provide that information and give him the alternative view here so he can make that decision.
Great point. All right, let's keep going with our Yogi-isms here. We see things like scientists are going to figure out a way to bring back the woolly mammoth, right? We see these kind of things from time to time. I'd say bring back either Mark Twain, Will Rogers, or Yogi Berra, right? Just because the stuff they said, Yogi's been gone a long time. A lot of these things are from probably the 70s, 60s, 70s, right? Somewhere in there. Mark Twain stuff's 100 years old, but yet it's still spot on, right, to today, right? So this one, I love this one. The future ain't what it used to be. So if he was around today, could you imagine what he might think, right? Seeing the world of today. But the future definitely is not what it used to be. But where are you going with this one?
So there's a lot of changes that have occurred over my lifetime. I know when I was young, as a child, that people got pensions. Yeah. Everybody got pensions. Yeah. Nowadays, those are very rare.
They had wagons back then, right?
Yeah. But
you're like 3 years older than me.
We had to. This is when we did the Morse code.
That's right.
Communicate with everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. So things have changed in that regard. So pensions now, starting in the 70s and the birth of IRAs, and earlier than that, slightly earlier than that, we had 401ks. Now the burden has shifted to the worker to save for his own retirement.
Yeah.
There are still some pensions, but they're mostly limited. Unions will have some, but again, those can be also limited. So that's one of the big changes we have. There's all the prices of our houses have gone up.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Exponentially. If you've lived in your house for 30 years, well, there might be a tax issue there nowadays as well. But those are things where things have changed over the years. It used to be back when you could then buy a house of equal or greater value before 1998. You buy a house of equal or greiter value and not pay any tax. So you could just kind of roll that over into a new residence.
Yeah,
nowadays
true.
You can't. There's a limitation. And here in California, if you're a married couple, $250 and $250, that's $500,000. It's not surprising to see people over that. And furthermore, if you're single, it's a $250,000 exclusion. So if your house has gone up over your lifetime and your spouse has died and you are the only owner at this point in time, and there's some tax moves in here that help increase your basis so you can reduce the actual gain. But at the end of the day, here in California, $250 or $500 is easy to we're way beyond that with a lot of people's
those numbers.
Gains.
Yeah. And there's just so much that's changed in retirement planning in general, right? Even in the last 5 years, how much has changed already, right? The Secure Act changes of the last couple of years.
I was just going to say that. Yes, the Secure Act, how your beneficiaries are going to have to take payments. It used to be 5 years. You could do stretch IRAs. Those are no longer available. Now you have to basically empty the account in 10 years. Spouses have different rules, of course, but these are things that have changed drastically, like you said, in the last 5 years. Being able to do the stretch IRA was one of those classics where you could have a much younger person inherit. Now they would still have to take money out of the account, but they could do it over the rest of their lifetime, 40 years if they wanted to, 50 years. So that is no longer available. So yeah, there's constant tax law changes. With the estate taxes, those went the exemption went way up. Well, it's sunsetting next year, so it's going to go. Right now, it's going way back down
until the election happens. Who knows what's going to happen? Everything's up in the air. And speaking of California and speaking of taxes, check this out, folks. John has a couple of free books, Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California, that reveal exactly how you can experience zero taxes in retirement and overcome the IRS lien on your 401k, IRA, and 403b, which could threaten your future lifestyle. These are complimentary, so all you have to do to pick these up 100% free is just stop by rescuemyretirement.net. That's rescuemyretirement.net. Fill in the basic info and he'll ship those out to you immediately. That's rescuemyretirement.net for a copy of Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California. All right, so we're going to do one more Yogi-ism here, Coach, and then we're going to wrap it up with another classic. And a lot of people have heard this one. It's like déjà vu all over again, right? Which is déjà vu, clearly, right? So you got to love when he would say these kind of redundant little things. And this has got to be the market, man. It has to be. It's like, I think for most people, some people feel like, I'll know what's happening again, right? As soon as especially if you got burned in 2008, for example, a lot of our demographic, maybe they were in their 40s, early 40s. This is 16, 17 years ago now, right? And now you're closer to retirement, and anytime the market dips down, we go, oh God, here it comes. It's happening all over again. It's easy when you've been burned, but at the same time, you got to deal with the market.
And to me, there are lessons to be learned in it's deja vu all over again. And that is actually a side where there's comfort in this, in that as bad as it was in 2008, or as bad as it was during the dot-com bubble, or as bad as it was back in the 70s when we had the oil crisis, we had inflation, we had Black Monday in 1987, we had the Kuwait War. We could go on and on and on.
COVID, even it was 3 months of the COVID downturn, or whatever.
Exactly.
2022, right? So
we've survived all of them.
True.
We have survived all of them. So what I will do with a client is I will acknowledge their pain, because they're right. This is it stinks when the markets goes down, and it can go down drastically at times. It can. It just does. So you have to kind of give your client the proverbial hug, pat them on the back and say, yeah, I get it. It's not fun to go through this, but the other part of the déjà
we've got to be
is
in
that the market has always recovered.
Yeah.
So.
And I know that's a tough one, right? And you hear, well, the market always comes back, so, hang in there. Yeah, but what's your timeline, right? So you got to be realistic about it. Yeah, the market, if you look at the statistics over a 100-year trajectory, yes, it recovers. It always goes up. But, there's also usually like a 10-year flat period. Like if you take a 30-year window and you start carving out and looking at things, Coach, you'll see there's about a decade worth about, where this just does nothing, right?
Yeah.
Where it can be
This is why diversification matters. And this is why what we do here is we have a dynamic distribution strategy. So if the markets go down, we may have to tighten your belt a little bit. So if you're taking out, for example, $4,000 a month, we may have to reduce it down to, say, $3,700 a month. Now, that may not be enjoyable, but it's not a reason to panic, and you won't be eating gravy and rice for dinner.
Yeah.
So
$300, that doesn't sound horrible, right? I mean, you make minor adjustments.
Yes, we make adjustments, and that's why we have to have an income strategy even in retirement. That's why we don't just kind of, again, wing it like we're starting at the beginning here, where if you don't have a plan. And so we do have a plan. And so if it is deja vu all over again, because we have experiences and we have had to tighten our belts here and there, experience will tell us that things will work out. But again, I do get it, and I do understand why people get frustrated when it is deja vu all over.
There you go. Well, folks, if you need some help, as always, make sure you jump on the calendar with Coach, and go visit him at bookachatwithjohn.net. We'll pop that up on the screen there for folks watching on YouTube. Bookachatwithjohn.net. Go check him out right there. And it's time to do the 2-minute warning. All right, so we got an email question here this week from Matt, and he says, Coach, I just learned that I can do a Roth conversion in any amount. For some reason, I thought there was a limit on how much you can do in a year. So now I want to convert a big amount this year, but I want to get your opinion on converting large amounts at one time. We need to blow the whistle on this, Coach?
It's a great question. In our industry, our side of the desk, there's a couple different thought processes here. My thought process generally is you want to fill up your tax bucket. If you're in the 12% bracket and you can convert, say, $30,000 before you kick into the 22% bracket, go ahead and fill that up, because you're going to be paying at a tax probably lower than what you may be getting taxed at in the future. So that's one way to look at it. On the other hand, there are some industry leaders that say, hey, we don't know what the taxes are going to be like in the future, but we have a really good idea they're going to be much higher. Well, in that case, there are some people that just advocate ripping the Band-Aid off right now. I still am a guy who, like we were alluding to a minute ago, I will provide you the information and show you, okay, this is what we believe will happen with your filling up the tax bucket. This will be if you convert more and convert even more. And we also have to take into account that we have tax-free growth, which is the most powerful growth we have if you decide to rip the Band-Aid off. So there's a lot of projection involved. This is not for the faint of heart. I will tell you that right now. I've not ever seen a legitimate online calculator that will be able to tell you all the ins and outs of doing a Roth conversion.
In large amounts.
That is something, yes.
Or any amounts.
You really, well, any amount, but really the large amounts, because you do need to project again that tax-free growth, and you need to do a comparison at 10, 20, 30 years even about how that's going to affect you. It's a great, great question. It's a huge dilemma, and it's something that you should take very, very, very seriously. And I would strongly recommend that you talk to a qualified professional about that.
Yeah. I mean, because you don't, and I know the conventional wisdom, Coach, here is that you don't want to kick yourself up a tax bracket, right? So you want to, you'll hear most advisors say, let's Roth over time. Right. And so that we can therefore we can manage the taxes, we can manage the tax bill, and we can also not kick ourselves into that higher number. But, if we are sunsetting our tax code, and we are moving back, I guess, to, the prior the Obama era administration, I guess, tax code, if nothing changes in 2026, then those brackets do get tighter and the numbers go up a little bit. So
correct.
It's
tax arbitrage. At the end of the day, it's can you pay tax a lower amount now versus what you might be paying in the future? That's all it is. Tax arbitrage. Now, what that amount matters to you is it can be different, but 3% of $1 million is $30,000. That's still adult money to me.
It's a big
so
money,
if that's going to, and it could be more than 3% again if things get ratcheted up with perhaps a new administration or whatnot.
Yep.
But those are things you have to consider here. And again, this tax arbitrage. That's all we're doing. Can you pay less now rather than paying more in the future?
Yeah. Well, hot, spicy take here to wrap up the show. If Biden stays in the office, tax, I believe they changed the code. I think they were certainly waiting to find out if they could do that. And if Trump gets back in, maybe he's able to keep it exactly where it's at and they don't sunset it. That's just, one, kind of thought that's out there, but who knows with the tax bill?
Don't know what's going to happen.
Don't know.
And it could be even if the so-called good guys get it, who knows? We just don't know what's going to happen.
Nope.
And that's why we have to, this is why I'm encouraging my clients before next year to really, really dig into this Roth conversion issue.
Yeah.
It's right in the front of our minds for the next year and a half.
It's the devil you know. So take advantage of what you know the code is right now, because we don't know what it's going to be a year from now or whatever the case is. So just go ahead but great question, Matt. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. As always, if you need some help, reach out to Coach. We've got that information on the screen. Check the show note details on whether it's in audio form or certainly on YouTube. Check the show descriptions for all the links that you can get back and Coach in touch with Coach and get yourself on the calendar, and subscribe to us on Apple or Spotify or YouTube at Red Zone Retirement Program. Simple Investing, Smart Future with Coach John Mears. And Coach, we'll see you next time. You guys have a great week. Bye-bye.
Advisory services offered through Mears Money Management, Inc., an RIA registered in the states of California and Texas. California Department of Insurance License number 0685203.